Did Van Gogh have it easy? Did he face no obstacles in his path to mastery? Riddled with doubts because of an uncertain future, he lost faith in himself. Though we may never know the cause, he ended his life on 29th of July 1890. No art movement, no great disruption happens without a great deal of friction. Our greatest source of doubt as artists today is AI. On this channel, we have been confronting ourselves against the AI problem for a couple months. There have been many super insightful comments on the matter from the community that even as someone who does both AI and art, I could never have thought about. Is AI creative, or can it become creative in the future? Even if it does that matter at all for us artists? What predictions can we make about AI art in the coming years? In this video, I want to get into all these things I learned from you guys in the past couple months. And to keep this going, I encourage you to jot down all your thoughts and impressions down in the comments section. I'm going to read everything voraciously. That's how we're going to move forward. Part 1. Is AI creative? Creativity is a big part of what an artist brings to the table. If AI is to replace us, then it needs to be a creative, or at least allow creativity through it. My first thoughts on the creativity problem was that AI cannot be creative, that I went into in 2 different videos. The first problem is, to make it quick, AI art is trained with the sole objective to create images that are as likely as possible within the training data. And we can think of creativity as partially just creating things that are not typical. That's not the whole story. But it is true that something creative tends not to be typical. But if we think of creativity as merely variety or unusualness, we run into issues that were rightly pointed out by Nitoru. I really hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly, by the way. So Nitoru says, considering that the likelihood is being optimized, wouldn't a large enough training data set result in solutions that we perceive as creative? I see how a small training data set would lead to boring solutions, though wouldn't a large enough data set allow for a larger set of valid solutions, more variations, and thus more creativity? Now, I think this is a very, very keen observation. The likelihood objective of AI, which causes it to only look to mimic the training data, becomes less problematic when we start modeling more and more things. That is because when the dataset gets super large, although the AI art model is still just trying to fit the datasets, we as humans can't tell anymore because of the sheer variety of what the model has learned. Nitoru goes on to say, since regardless of whether it is actually creative or not, I'd actually argue that the chance for a human to create new art that bears no similarities to a piece of art already present in the internet would be minuscule. And secondly, aren't humans also in a way heavily influenced by their training data, as in their experiences throughout life? I do wonder how different that is in comparison to AI. So Nitoru has a good point in that human art isn't exactly atypical either. Which obviously you can see because most art that exists at a certain point in time tends to look like the arts that other people at that same point in time make. And this makes the likelihood objective of AI even less problematic. But to answer the question of how different artists are in comparison to AI, I would say that the fact that humans tend to create art that is similar to other arts doesn't mean that it is their objective to do so. Unlike AI goes full tunnel vision towards the objective of copying art that other people have made. This isn't what we do as artists, and that's a big difference. Artists learn from others and copy some of their techniques so that they can express themselves with eloquence, be listened to, and eventually create their own style. AI learns from artists in its training data with the tunnel vision objective to mimic it exactly. It isn't trying to do anything else than that. But even then, there's a second problem with AI when it comes to creativity. On the channel at that point, we dove into the work of former OpenAI researcher Dr. Kenneth Stanley, who argues that in order for AI to be creative, it needs to give up the idea of objectives. And he continues by saying that the current culture in AI research is obsessed with outperforming the previous models on some benchmarks, which makes it impossible to give up this idea of objectives and thus make creative AI. And I completely agree with this. As someone who works in AI research, the just looming obligation to fulfill benchmark performance is absolutely the main driving factor of most AI research. And for that second problem with AI when it comes to creativity, it seems like most of you guys just agreed with the take in the comments. So we can predict with fair certainty that AI isn't going to be creating anything on its own anytime soon. And then, after all this thinking about creativity, in comes Aztec Man, who's been very active in the comments, and I want to thank them for that. I find challenging, he says, this idea of creativity. How do we test for creativity? How do we set a null hypothesis to disconfirm it? What assumptions about modern AI are we making? It seems like perhaps a mythical goal rather than a practical one. AGI, anyone? I suspect when we say a person is creative, what we really mean is that there is a sense of perceivable vision which went into something. It's hard to talk about a certain person being more creative than another. It altogether depends on the audience perceiving a sense of salience, a sense that there is signal worth fishing from the noise. Is the banana taped to a wall creative? So I think this is a very important point to round out our discussion on AI creativity, because it reminds us that at the end of the day, we don't even know what creativity is in ourselves. So here's our conclusion on creativity so far on the Artpost AI channel. AI itself will not get creative. It is very unlikely that it's going to start coming up with stuff on its own. For the foreseeable future, it will remain a dead tool. The question for us artists trying to know the effect AI will have on us is, can people be creative through the AI? That's where the real challenge comes. Here, Nitoru's comment about increasing dataset size is super insightful. It seems like people being creative through AI might become possible in the future. That is, if we ignore the rest of this video. Before we continue, please take a moment to let me know in the comments if you think this conclusion on creativity is wrong and should be corrected. I really encourage you to take a moment to think about this and help us out. Part 2. We have more than creativity. So we had this whole discussion about creativity, and that was very interesting. But something that a lot of you guys pointed out is that creativity isn't all we have. For instance, here is the internet archaeologist saying, is a satellite image of some field in Iowa art? Without emotion, AI will never be able to make art. Art doesn't just require creativity, but it requires emotion and a more fundamental level to feed that creativity. No matter how incredible a picture an AI generates, maybe it is but a satellite image of a field in Iowa. It will never be art. There seems to be something deeper than mere surface level creativity in our artistic endeavors. The banana taped to the wall that Aztec Man mentioned might be creative, but it definitely lacks that extra depth. What is that depth? What is the thing that art does that goes beyond mere interestingness? I personally found my answer in a comment by Innsmouth Admiral. They say, I feel like it wouldn't even matter if AI was creative. Art is a form of communication. Humans crave this connection, be it from drawing a picture, carving a sculpture, doing a dance, or anything else. Means something coming from humans we can share a bond with. It'll be interesting if AI can be creative. It would be a way to engage with it on a new level, but this doesn't replace human creativity in the slightest. Art is a form of communication. It is the most mysterious one at that. Art allows us to grasp at things that no one else has explored before. If our inspiration is strong enough, we can express these things that cannot be said in any other way and share them with other people. We look at art trying to empathize with the artist. We make art trying to share something. As Innsmouth Admiral points out, since art is communication, and communication requires a communicator, AI would at best be a tool used by humans to make art. But now we're going to see that even as an inert tool to be used by humans, AI has many issues. This is another comment from Innsmouth Admiral. To be fair, current image generation models aren't doing anything like this outside of reinforcement learning from human feedback. They also aren't their own autonomous entities like we are. They're single-pass inference models done based on human input prompts. This puts the creativity on the prompt provider, as we've mentioned. You can say it isn't skillful, but the prompt is the creative bit. Through using an AI model, they trade off precision for speed. They can kind of get what they want from the model, but to create something with high precision, they would need to manually create it with finer precision tools, i.e. paintbrush, pencil, etc. Trading precision for speed is exactly what's happening here. Directing a model to make your images by giving it a few dozen words isn't a very fine-grained process. If art is communication and AI limits your precision and thus your expressivity, then it certainly seems like those who have skills in creating works themselves by hand will remain superior in the domain of art. That is, of course, not to say that there won't be people who are able to express something truly worthwhile through AI, but it's going to be tougher to do so than it looks. Another very useful point about the flaws of AI as a tool comes to us from Paul Higgins 5165. They say a recent experiment was done to see if people could tell the difference between AI-generated faces and photos of real people. The result was interesting, because while the test subjects claimed that they could not tell the difference, their brains were seen on EEG to react differently to the AI-generated images. So on some unconscious level, the test subjects were able to identify which faces were real and which were not. The reason for this is because humans are very good pattern detectors in their own right, and there were patterns in the AI-generated faces that they had registered on the brains of the subjects on some subliminal level. So just for those who don't work in neuroscience or in a neuroscience lab, EEG is just a form of brain recording. Personally, I was able to find a few studies that kind of correspond to what Paul Higgins is referring to. I'm not sure exactly which one Mr. Higgins is referring to here, but these results definitely seem legit. But the point that we have some latent ability to detect AI art and will get better at it as we see more of it, and at the same time, as artists endeavor to differentiate themselves from it, is a very convincing one that I personally believe. So, based on all this insight that we've gathered by thinking about this problem together, can we make a prediction about the future of AI art? Part 3. The Mark of the Tool and the Future of AI Art. This section is completely dedicated to Paul Higgins 5165, who had an absolutely stellar take on the future of AI art that I completely agree with. Among AI artists, there are lively debates as to the relative virtues of different tools. Is Midjourney a better tool than DALL-E, for example? These debates only make sense if it can be said that both these tools leave an imprint on their creations that is identifiable in some way. That being the case, what happens if millions of AI artists use Midjourney to make their art? The answer is that they will converge. Their creations, all bearing the imprint of the tool they are using, will begin to look similar to each other. Okay, they might argue. Can the same thing not be said about a paintbrush or a sculptor's chisel? Well, not really, because there's a huge difference between the inputs a paintbrush has on the final image and the impact that Midjourney has on the final image. In the case of the paintbrush, the behavior of the tool is massively influenced by the hand that holds the brush, because each artist is a unique person with different skills, aspirations, and experiences. Perhaps one day, AI will really be able to read our minds and create perfect representations of the images we want. But today's AI art machines are far more crude. First, they must translate our words into images, an imperfect process in itself. Then, they must execute their imperfect understanding of our intent using a specific and fixed array of trained weights, which are themselves shaped and constrained by the specific algorithms used to run the program. It would be genuinely surprising if this cumbersome process did not leave distinct visual fingerprints on the images it made. My view is that at some point AI art will reach critical mass, in the sense that it will come to be seen as a genre in its own right. This will not invalidate it as a solution commercially, but it will create a problem for anyone wishing to stand out in a marketplace saturated with AI imagery. I've already heard from some artists that their clients want them to use AI for reasons of cost saving, but are specifically asking them to avoid that AI look. Now, how this contradictory feat is to be achieved, no one seems to know. But it's interesting that already the term AI look has been coined and is in circulation among some who commission commercial art. Now, thank you so much, Paul Higgins. This is absolutely right, in my opinion. And part of what will define this so-called AI look is going to be all the limitations that we talk about on the channel. With a little bit of effort, we can gain more awareness of how AI is likely to evolve in the future and position ourselves properly as artists to shine bright in the future art world. That's the whole point of the Art Post AI channel. We're trying to collaboratively figure out the AI art problem as artists and enrich and improve everyone's art in the process. So if you want to join us in our search, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more upcoming videos. Don't forget to let us know any thoughts of yours in the comments. In particular, although I sometimes get a bit technical about the AI side, this channel is all about artists' perspectives. What is your definition of arts? What got you into arts? What do you think about the points in this video? Please dump all that into the comments below. And if you want to support the channel, you can watch the section that's about to start. And if you're interested, click the link in the description. And I guess I'll see you guys next time.
Now the silence whispers, haze taken control. Farewell to the strokes, the shades, the lines. Bye bye, AI, bye bye, to the visions born of human minds. Bye bye, AI, bye bye, AI. In this digital dawn, we stand apart. Know the artist struggle, the triumph and the strife. Machines churn perfection, cutting creative liberty like a knife. Gone the errors, the trust, the human touch, so dear, replaced by algorithms deformed.